Mass Effect and time travel. These are four words that normally don't mix together very well, but for some reason this idea pops up fairly often across the internet, and I often get asked on this channel whether I think that the next Mass Effect game will incorporate some form of time travel. How's it going, everybody? MrHulthen here, and today I want to dive into this fairly chaotic topic on whether time travel could even work in the Mass Effect universe, and whether we'll see a form of time travel plot in the next Mass Effect game. But before I start, I just want to make it very clear that this is just speculation, as is always the case with these types of videos. But if you do enjoy this type of stuff, then remember to click on that big red subscribe button. And without further ado, let's dive into this time travel rabbit hole. First, let's look at how time travel could even be possible in the Mass Effect universe. And well, if you're like me, you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. The mass relays would definitely be the most obvious technology lying around that could open the path to time travel. We know that the relays manipulate space-time to create mass-free corridors between each other, which allows for ships to travel at speeds far greater than light speed. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about relativity, but from what I understand, anything that travels past light speed would essentially break the laws of physics and travel back in time. But because of the fictional material called Element Zero, traveling at relativistic speeds is possible because of how EZO creates a space-time bubble around itself when exposed to a positive or negative electrical charge. So you see, all the technology in Mass Effect is mostly possible due to Element Zero, and this is why EZO is by far the most valuable material in the galaxy. So I think the key to traveling back in time would have to surround the manipulation of Element Zero. But how? Well, I'm not a physicist, but because Element Zero is a fictional element, there are probably ways you can write a pretty good explanation to why EZO would allow for time travel, whether that be using EZO for special time travel mass relays or some other high-tech device. Now, secondly, and probably most importantly, we of course have to ask why time travel would be introduced in the first place. And well, there may be several reasons for this. The most obvious reason for traveling back in time that comes to mind would be to stop the Reapers before the Reaper War takes place, or perhaps even to a point during the war that was key to turning the tide. You see, the Reapers' invasion of the Milky Way was cataclysmic in proportion, and the amount of individuals that died as a direct cause of the Reapers was definitely up in several billions. Several homeworlds are probably not even habitable anymore, just because of how much the Reapers bombarded most inhabited planets. I mean, just look at Earth in Mass Effect 3. So in essence, traveling back in time to stop the Reaper War from happening in the first place is as good a reason as any. But wait! The Reapers weren't just responsible for harvesting the current galactic cycle, as they also harvested countless civilizations every 50,000 years up until Mass Effect 3, meaning that the total loss of life would be in the trillions, which is just a mind-numbing number when you think about it. What I'm trying to say here is, why stop at the current cycle? What if we traveled all the way back to the creation of the Catalyst by the Leviathans? How many lives could have been saved then? Stuff like this could open up some really insane storylines, like fighting to stop the creation of the Catalyst and the first harvest of the Milky Way. But this is also where we encounter our first real problem. As per traditional stories involving time travel, what happens after halting the creation of the Reapers would seem to be a really hard part to explain, because this could open up the storyline to almost an infinite number of possibilities. But you see, I might have the solution. By preventing the creation of the Catalyst, the Leviathan would still be the galactic overlords overseeing every other species in the galaxy. And because the Catalyst was created to find a solution to synthetics always warring with organics, perhaps a race of AI would rise to do exactly what the Catalyst and the Reapers were trying to prevent: the complete annihilation of all organic life in the galaxy, essentially giving way to something even worse than the Reapers. So when you think about it, the outcome of the plot would essentially result in us either stopping this new race of AI that starts killing everything, or going back in time again at the end of the game to correct the timeline by letting the Catalyst be created again. Almost like a perfect loop. You undo your mistake. But as much as a story like this is possible in my opinion, this is not the problem that a lot of fans are trying to solve. No. You see, what I've found is that most of the time, some of you guys are trying to find a way to connect the storyline of the Mass Effect trilogy to Mass Effect Andromeda. In other words, having Shepard and the Normandy squad meet up with Ryder and the Tempest crew. Now, just to remind everyone, the story that takes place in Andromeda is placed roughly 600 years after Mass Effect 3, meaning that logically speaking, it's quite literally impossible for Ryder and the Tempest crew to somehow meet up with Shepard and company, since by the time the Arks arrive in Andromeda, Shepard and most of the Normandy crew would be long dead. Even if Ryder and the Tempest crew somehow managed to instantly travel back to the Milky Way through a special mass relay, it would still be 600 years too late. So, in order to solve this and not rely on putting Shepard and the crew in cryostasis, you would have to introduce time travel. So, how would you write a story about this that still makes sense? Well, as I mentioned before, it is entirely possible that this relay we see being built from the official N7-day footage is actually located in the Andromeda galaxy. Now, if this is a specialized mass relay that can create massless corridors on its own without a receiving mass relay on the other end, then the Tempest crew could logically be zipped back into the Milky Way almost instantaneously, where they then could meet up with Liara and perhaps some of the other trilogy characters that are still alive. Now, as you may have noticed, I have been thinking about this for a while, and the only way I can see this working is the following. The story would have to surround Liara or someone else, possibly even the Geth, having researched time travel and possibly coming up with a solution, whereby then Ryder and the Tempest crew get sent back in time to either assist Shepard in stopping the Reapers or bringing Shepard and the Normandy crew to the future timeline to help stop a new threat. The problem with a plot like this, however, is that besides creating a bunch of plot holes, the story runs the risk of becoming uninspired and lazy, as bringing Shepard to the future would essentially doom the galaxy to be harvested by the Reapers, and even if Ryder just borrows Shepard and returns the commander to the original timeline at a later point, it would just feel like a literal copy of Avengers Endgame. Having Ryder assist Shepard during the Reaper War could be an interesting prospect, I'm not gonna lie, but in the end it could also remove a lot of the emotional impact because of how hard fought the victory over the Reapers was. Let's face it guys, time travel is probably not the greatest idea for a Mass Effect story. Trust me, I want Shepard back as much as any of you, and I wouldn't say no to Ryder meeting up with our legendary commander, but in that case, the Frozen Shepard/Frozen Normandy crew storyline is probably the better way to go about it. There are 2 entire galaxies that are ripe for exploration, and it's such a huge universe with an insane amount of potential for future amazing stories. And I really don't think that the Mass Effect universe needs a time travel story at all. What I do think though is that a First Contact type storyline could be for the best for the next Mass Effect game. And yes, I do have another theory video brewing about that as well. So remember to stay tuned for that. And that's it for today. Remember to become a member if you want to support the channel in the best way possible, and do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. MrHulthen, signing out.